We put out a poll recently on the 5.9 Direct community page asking whether or not devs should start developing exclusively for next gen quote unquote consoles, the PS5, the Xbox Series line. And surprisingly, we got a pretty mixed response on this. 55% said yes, it is time to move on. 45% said no, no way. And we're here to talk about this today. Hey, I'm Little Bobby here with 5.9 Gaming Direct. And today we're going to talk about why it's time to move on for developers in terms of continuing to support older gen consoles. Now, there's a lot of understandable arguments on both sides, so we're going to break that down. But in our opinion, we're just going to be upfront. We feel here as a majority that it is time to move on to PS5 development, Xbox Series X, Xbox Series S development only. Xbox One and PlayStation 4 are going to do nothing but hold back consoles from here, but we are going to explore both sides and why they both do make some really good points on the subject. First up, we're going to deal with the pros, why we think that developers need to focus solely on the newest generation of console lines and stop development for those older systems. First point would be that we are going to get better games when the games are made exclusively for the next gen. Personally, I haven't owned an Xbox console since about 2015 or so, but I have to say that when it comes to PlayStation, I am very well versed. I've had every PlayStation console that's ever been available, and I have to say that there is a noticeable difference of quality of games that come out when developers look towards making for the newest or most current gen console only. I mean, take a look at The Last of Us original footage for the PS3 and then take a look at the footage for the PS4 remaster that came out about a year later exclusive to the PS4. If we look at those, we can definitely see a change in how nice things were able to look and how things were able to run. We were able to run the game smoothly. Visual quality was increased with better textures and lighting. And we could even see that with the PS5 Last of Us Part 1 quote-unquote remake that just came out. But even now we see it if we went and played something like Skyrim on Xbox 360 or PS3. Compare that to how it would run maybe on a computer, like a budget computer nowadays. That computer is going to run circles around an Xbox 360's performance, just like the Xbox One did. But especially considering things like processors, with processor speed and basic tech specs that are available in the new Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5, as well as the Xbox Series S, are light years away from where we were on the last gen. Remember, PS5 had an AMD Jaguar processor, I think, which was basically just like a solid tablet processor. Good enough for its time to be sure, but nowadays it's kind of laughable that we were running games on that. Looking at the specs for the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5, we see that now they're running on AMD's Zen 2 architecture, and those processors are fantastic. They handle a lot more processes per second, and they might also actually be something we would stick inside of a gaming PC if we wanted to. If I'm not mistaken, they're equivalent to something like a Ryzen 2600 processor, which was a really solid processor. I had one of those for a while in my gaming PC and I loved it. With this much extra power, we're going to see the ability for devs to create bigger experiences, greater experiences for everyone. Think about Halo Infinite's open world. Now, I did not really dig that game, but if you're on an older gen console, that open world is going to take a little longer to load. You're going to have more pop-in, and apparently it's been rumored that the Xbox One support is the reason why co-op is not coming to Halo Infinite, because they couldn't figure out a way to get it to work with the Xbox One in particular. That creates an issue because that means these older systems are holding back the experiences that we get delivered to us. Another reason that we might think about switching only to new gen is the developer cost. With the developers having to work around both sets of console generations, there's going to be a lot of wasted time in development to make sure that these new experiences they're trying to craft for people who have been lucky enough to upgrade are going to have to somehow function on this much older hardware. And that older hardware being so limiting means they're going to have to put extra people and extra resources that they could be spending on making those bigger experiences for next gen consoles into effectively porting it and making it run on something older like an Xbox One or a PS4. Even the PS4 or the Xbox One X don't have the power that the newer consoles have, so you have to make exceptions and make things work entirely differently in some cases. Back in the day, I used to work at EA, and when we had a PS3 SKU of a game and a PS2 SKU of a game, those were completely different ports altogether. And they don't really do that as much anymore because that cost way more in development time back then. But I still feel like we're wasting resources and time that could be put into making a better overall product, into making sure, hey, this is still going to be able to run on a PS4 or an Xbox One, right? All right, now the cons. There are definitely some reasons why we should not be forced to upgrade, and I totally am with you. Even though I have a PS5, I get it. Back in the day when I was younger, I might not have been able to afford a PS5 right away, especially with scalpers. Scalpers are a big issue in just about anything that's in demand right now. You see it in shoes, you see it in, concert tickets, it's been forever, right? Computer parts as well. But the thing with consoles is that it's really limiting a number of people from getting the console that they want, because scalpers are buying it up with all these bots and they end up selling it for a ridiculous markup. So when the Sony store or the Microsoft store doesn't have the product because all the scalpers bought it, then the demand skyrockets and you're forced to pay $700-800 for a console just because you can't get it from the official source. One of the comments left by one of our viewers, El Patron, said they should take the Steam Deck approach when it comes to getting a next-gen console so we don't have to deal with this BS. And I agree with that. There needs to be some sort of system implemented on both the Microsoft and Sony side that lets people reserve a console, get that email. So when you know, hey, I've got enough saved up for this PS5, I have enough with tax, with shipping, whatever, to my state that I can get this thing now. You can sign up, have that money put away, and when you get that email, you can immediately buy it. This is a system that has worked great for Steam Deck and for Valve, and they've actually been able to completely catch up on their Steam Deck deliveries. Instead of it taking 6 months, it now takes something like 3 weeks from the time you sign up for the email to the time you are able to buy a Steam Deck. I actually just got my Steam Deck email this morning, and unfortunately I can't afford it right now, but if I could, I'd be able to buy it without question at MSRP directly from Valve. Sony and Xbox both need to make this happen, because this is one of those things that people need to have confidence in the console market right now, especially with how rampant scalpers are being. Another thing about that, it kind of ties into scalpers, is just the fact that they are expensive. If you want a Series X or if you want a PlayStation 5, those are going to cost you quite a bit of money. The cheapest you're going to find a PS5 for at MSRP would be $500, and same with the Xbox Series X. Now, the Xbox Series S is an option for people, and we have spoken about this a couple times. While we're not huge fans of Xbox here, there is no way to deny that the Xbox Series S is actually the best bargain in gaming right now, especially with Game Pass. It remains to be seen how the Series S is going to hold up in the test of time, because that processor and that GPU are much more limited than the PS5 and the Xbox Series X. But if you want next gen right now, I've seen Xbox Series S consoles at my local Walmart just sitting on the shelves. You can get them, they're easier to make, they're easier to get out because they're smaller, the logistics are simpler for Microsoft, and that is one of the wins that they've definitely had this generation, and what keeps their sales numbers so high right now. Because the Series S is so much cheaper and easier to produce, they're able to get more out, and that kind of keeps them in the conversation in terms of sales of console. But if you do want one of the big boys, it's definitely going to run you several $100s, and that is something not everybody can afford. And simply put, some people don't want to settle for a Series S. They want the big boy, they want the Series X, or some people like me are not a fan of Xbox and they want a PS5. They don't want a PS4 anymore, they want a PS5. Like I said, I'm totally understanding of the fact that it costs several $100s. That is just something that you have to do and look at for your own personal thing. We're not telling you to buy a console that you cannot afford. If you can afford it, then you should definitely do it, because even though scalpers have been pretty rampant, production has gone up on all console systems in the last 6 months, it seems like. PlayStations, I get alerts for PlayStation 5 going live every few minutes, and I get alerts for Xbox Series X going live on the Microsoft Store or GameStop or whatever every few minutes as well. It seems like these consoles are much more abundant nowadays, and yeah, the scalpers were an issue, especially in the beginning, but thankfully they seem to be cooling off a little bit as production has ramped up so much. It is actually easier now for most people who want and can afford a PS5 or Xbox to get those nowadays. And like I said, the Series S, you can basically walk into any big box store and they're going to have one of those on the shelf somewhere. Keep in mind, having said all this, we totally understand both sides of this, even though we want to see developers push towards the new gen. Keep in mind that a lot of developers, especially big titles like Insomniac's Spider-Man 2, are specifically set to go only to PS5, right? Next gen. I think Redfall is going to only the series consoles. And same thing with Starfield, if I'm not mistaken. It's not going to be long before we see third-party developers following suit, and that's what's going to let them create the best experiences, the things that they want to make, the art that they want to create for us to enjoy. But what do you think? If you didn't respond to this poll, but you see this video, do we need to keep PlayStation 4 and Xbox One around a few more years to support those people who haven't been able to upgrade yet? Or do we need to just move on and get it over with, get into that new gen, and make that the exclusive focus going forward? Let us know down in the comments below. And hey, if you watch this video, thank you so much. We do appreciate your time here. I'm Little Bobby with 59 Gaming Direct. Make sure if you made it this far that you subscribe for more of our content, our news, reviews, and other great stuff that we make here. Hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date every time we post a video. And let us know with a like if you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much again for watching, and we hope to see you soon.